Smoke still rose from the ruins, covering the broken ground with a bitter smell. The battlefield was silent except for the sound of fire crackling and the distant echo of falling stones. A human soldier walked slowly between shattered walls, his boots pressing into the dirt. His uniform was torn, and a line of dried blood ran down his arm, but his eyes were sharp, searching for movement. He stopped when he heard it. A low growl. It was not the sound of an animal. It was too controlled, too filled with rage. He turned his head carefully and saw her. Behind a broken pillar, an alien girl stood. Her body was tense, her eyes glowing a faint gold in the dim light. She held her side where blood flowed down her arm and dripped onto the ground. Her claws were still sharp, ready to strike, even though her legs shook from weakness. The human did not raise his weapon. He lowered it slowly, his hands open. His breathing grew heavier, but his steps stayed calm. He knew one wrong move could mean death. The alien girl hissed, her voice cold and filled with pain. "Stay back, human. Do not touch me." Her words trembled, but her glare did not. She was a warrior, trained to kill, and even now, broken and wounded, she stood like a storm ready to burst. The human reached to his belt and pulled out a small metal flask. He lifted it slightly, showing it to her. "Water," he said softly. His voice was steady, quiet, without threat. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped back, almost stumbling. She did not trust him. No alien of her kind would ever trust a human. To them, humans were weak, liars, and enemies, but her wound was deep and her breath was short. The soldier took one careful step forward. His boots scraped against the stones. She lifted her claws higher, warning him. "Don't come closer," she growled, though her knees trembled. He froze for a moment, then crouched down. He placed the flask on the ground between them. Slowly, he pushed it forward across the dirt. He kept his eyes on her, waiting. Her chest rose and fell fast, her jaw tight with suspicion. For a long moment, she did not move. Then her hand shook, and she finally reached forward. She grabbed the flask, her claws clicking against the metal. She lifted it slowly and sniffed it as if expecting poison. The human stayed silent, watching her carefully. His rifle was still on his back, untouched. She drank. Only a little, but enough to wet her dry throat. Her lips trembled as the water touched them, and for the first time her eyes flickered with something other than anger, but it lasted only a second. She threw the flask back at him. It clattered against the stones, and she hissed again. "Why help me, human? Do you think I will thank you before I kill you?" The soldier caught the flask before it rolled away. He looked at her wound. Blood had soaked through her side, dripping into the dirt. She would not last long like this. He slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a strip of cloth. Her eyes widened. She stepped back again, weak but still fierce. "No," she whispered. "You will not bind me." He shook his head. "I am not binding you. I am stopping the bleeding." His words were simple, steady. He moved closer, slow enough for her to strike if she chose. She hissed and raised her claws, ready to cut through his throat. His shadow fell over her, his hand only inches from her side. She could kill him in one move, but then her legs gave way. She dropped to her knees, gasping from the pain. The human knelt quickly. His hands pressed the cloth to her wound. She cried out, her claws slashing the air, almost striking his face. He did not move away. He kept the pressure firm, his jaw tight, sweat on his forehead. Her breath turned sharp, her chest rising fast. "Stop, stop touching me," she whispered, but the strength in her voice was gone. "I won't," he said firmly. "If I stop, you die." For the first time, her glare broke. Her golden eyes softened, confused. No human had ever spoken like that to her. His touch was firm but not cruel. His hands shook slightly, not from fear of her, but from the effort of keeping her alive. The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. Enemy patrols. The human turned his head quickly, his ears sharp. He had little time. He looked back at the alien girl. Her breathing slowed. Her claws lowered slightly. Her body was still tense, but she did not strike. Instead, she whispered something so faint he almost did not hear. "My name is Kara." The soldier's eyes widened. A name. She had given him her name. He pressed the cloth tighter, his heart racing. For a moment, the battlefield seemed silent again, as if the world was holding its breath. The fierce alien girl still glared, but in her eyes there was no longer only rage. There was something else, fragile and hidden, something she had never allowed a human to see before. And in that broken ruin, surrounded by fire and death, the first spark of trust was born. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the soft crackle of flames from a small fire the human had managed to build. The alien girl sat a short distance away, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. The bandage he had pressed to her wound was rough, made from torn cloth and coated with salve from his small kit. She had not spoken since giving her name, and he did not push her. He glanced at her often, his eyes sharp, watching for signs of pain or sudden movement. She still looked fierce, like a cornered predator, but he noticed her shoulders trembling. She hated appearing weak before a human, yet her body betrayed her. Finally, she broke the silence. Why? Her voice was low, her words filled with suspicion. Why do you help me? He turned his gaze to the fire. Because you are hurt, he said simply. His answer was calm, as if no more explanation was needed. Her golden eyes narrowed. You think saving me will make me bow to you? His lips curved slightly, not into a smile, but into something close to pity. No, I just don't want to watch someone bleed to death. Her claws flexed against the dirt. Every word he spoke confused her. Humans were supposed to be selfish, cruel, desperate to prove dominance. Yet this one treated her like she was worth saving, even while she threatened him. The wound throbbed with pain. She leaned back against the broken wall, her head lowering for just a moment. Exhaustion weighed her down, but pride kept her awake. She refused to close her eyes, not in front of him. The human pulled out a small piece of dried bread from his pack. He broke it in half and placed one piece on the ground between them. He did not offer it directly. He simply pushed it closer with a quiet movement. Her stomach betrayed her with a faint growl. Shame and anger flashed across her face. She glared at him, but hunger gnawed at her strength. Slowly, with a sharp motion as if daring him to laugh, she snatched the bread. She bit into it and chewed in silence. He said nothing. He just ate his half, his eyes on the fire. For the first time since they met, she did not hiss or spit at him. She finished the bread, dropped the crumbs, and sat still. The firelight touched her face, showing how young she truly was beneath her warrior pride. After a long silence, she whispered, "If my people find us, they will kill you." He looked at her calmly. "Then I will run." Her head tilted, confused. You would not fight?" "I would protect you," he said. "But I don't want to kill them." The words struck her like a hidden blade. Protect her? No human had ever spoken those words to her. Her throat tightened, and she quickly turned her face away so he would not see her expression. The night grew colder. She shivered, though she tried to hide it. The human noticed and removed his worn jacket. He placed it near her without a word. She stared at it for a long time, her pride battling with her need. Finally, she pulled it around her shoulders. The warmth surprised her, and for the first time since the battle, she closed her eyes for a few seconds. But when she opened them again, she found the human still awake, watching over the fire with quiet patience. His weapon rested at his side, untouched. He looked tired, but he did not sleep. He stayed awake to guard her. Her claws curled loosely in her lap. Her mind raced with questions, doubts, and something new she could not name. For the first time in her life, she wondered if all humans were truly her enemies, or if this one was different. The fire burned lower, the shadows long, and though she hated to admit it, her breathing softened. Against her will, she drifted closer to sleep, the human's jacket holding her in warmth she had never expected. And just before darkness claimed her, a thought flickered through her mind that shook her more than the pain in her wound. She was not afraid of him anymore. Dawn crept slowly across the ruins, painting the sky in pale shades of red and gray. The alien girl stirred, her golden eyes opening to the faint warmth of sunlight. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The fire was cold ash now, the battlefield silent, and his jacket, rested on her shoulders. Her hand touched the fabric, and her chest tightened with a strange feeling she could not name. The human knelt nearby, carefully checking the bandage on her side. His hands moved with steady patience, though his eyes were heavy from lack of sleep. He had watched over her the entire night. She hissed softly, her pride forcing her to speak. "Do not touch me without asking." He did not flinch. "If I don't, the wound will rot," he answered. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Her lips pressed tight. She wanted to shove him away, to remind him that she was a warrior, not a fragile child. But when he peeled the cloth away, the pain shot through her body like fire. She winced, her claws scraping against the stone floor. He saw it. He saw her weakness. Rage and shame burned in her chest. But then she noticed something else, his hands. They were trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion. His fingers were cut and bruised, yet he handled her wound with care, as if she was something precious. He poured the last of his antiseptic over the cut. The sting was unbearable, and she let out a sharp cry before she could stop herself. Instinctively, her claws lashed out, slashing close to his face. The movement was fast, wild, deadly. He froze, but he did not retreat. The cut on his cheek where her claw grazed him began to bleed. Still, he kept the pressure on her wound, his jaw tight. Her breathing slowed. She stared at the blood on his skin. Any other human would have struck back, but this one only pressed the cloth firmer, his eyes steady. "You'll live?" he said simply, ignoring his own pain. She blinked at him, confused, her world tilted. He was stronger than she thought, not in the way of claws and teeth, but in will. For the first time, she whispered without anger, "Why? Why do you not fight me when I hurt you?" He looked at her, his face unreadable. "Because I know you're not my enemy," he said. Her chest tightened again, but this time it was not from pain. No one had ever said those words to her. Not her enemies, not even her own people. She lowered her claws slowly, unsure what was happening inside her. The silence between them grew heavy, filled with unspoken things. She should hate him. She should push him away. Yet when his hand brushed her skin while tying the bandage, she did not pull back. Her pride told her to resist, but something warmer, softer, began to rise within her. Outside, the sound of boots echoed faintly, patrols searching the ruins. The human's head snapped up, his body tense. He moved quickly, pulling her arm around his shoulder. Her eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Keeping you alive," he whispered. She wanted to argue, to refuse his help, but her legs were too weak. Her body leaned against him without choice. The closeness startled her, his scent strange but not unpleasant, his strength carrying her with ease. The footsteps came closer. He guided her into the shadow of a broken wall, crouching low. Her heart pounded, not from fear of the patrols, but from the heat of his hand gripping hers tightly, steadying her. In that hidden corner, pressed together, her fierce glare finally cracked. The warrior who had once sworn to kill him now found herself trembling for an entirely different reason. And when the soldiers passed by without seeing them, she realized with shock that her claws were no longer raised. They rested, curled gently against his chest. The ruins stretched like a maze, broken walls and fallen towers, twisting into endless shadows. The human moved carefully, his arm firm around her waist as he guided her through the rubble. Her wound burned with every step, yet she said nothing. Pride sealed her lips, though inside she hated how much she depended on him. They stopped near a collapsed tunnel. The air smelled of dust and rusted metal. A heavy slab of stone blocked the passage, leaving only a narrow opening just wide enough for one person to crawl through. Beyond it, faint light shone. The way out. He studied the gap, his jaw tightening. "We can make it through," he whispered. "But you'll have to trust me." Her golden eyes flashed with suspicion. "Trust you? You want me trapped so you can claim me?" His face remained calm, though his eyes were sharp. "If I wanted that, I would have left you behind." The silence between them was sharp, cutting deeper than any blade. She hated his words because they carried truth. He had risked himself again and again for her, and still she could not understand why. The footsteps of patrols echoed faintly through the ruins. They were getting closer. He lowered himself onto the dirt and began pulling stones away from the gap. The muscles in his arms strained, his breath heavy. Dust choked the air, filling his lungs, but he did not stop. She watched, her claws digging into the wall beside her. She should have told him to leave her, to save himself. Yet when he pulled free a jagged rock and coughed hard from the dust, her heart clenched in a way it never had before. The opening was just wide enough. He looked at her, his expression firm. "I'll go first. Then I'll pull you through." "No," she said quickly, surprising herself. Her voice shook, not with anger, but with something closer to fear. "If anyone comes, you'll be trapped, and I'll be alone." He met her eyes and for the first time allowed a small smile. "Then we go together." The thought stunned her. Together? It was not a word her people used with humans. But before she could answer, he slid into the gap, dragging himself through the dirt and sharp stone. His body disappeared into the narrow tunnel, and the silence that followed made her chest ache. Then his hand shot back through the hole, open, waiting. She stared at it, her breath quick. Her instincts screamed to ignore it, to never depend on a human. Yet her body moved before her mind could stop it. She reached out, her clawed hand trembling as it touched his. His grip was firm, warm, steady. He pulled, guiding her through. The stone tore at her side, sending waves of pain through her body, but his hand never let go. She bit back a cry, her teeth cutting into her lip. At last she fell forward into the dim light on the other side. He caught her before she hit the ground, his arms tight around her. She looked up at him, her breath uneven, and for a moment their faces were only inches apart. Something shifted inside her. The walls of anger she had built for years cracked further, and she hated how much she wanted to stay in that warmth. But then the sound of shouts filled the tunnel behind them. Enemy soldiers had found the trail. The human tightened his hold on her. "We run," he said firmly. Her pride screamed against it, yet when his hand found hers again, she did not pull away. She ran with him into the unknown, her fierce heart betraying her with every step that stayed in rhythm with his. The cave they found was small, hidden behind heavy vines and broken stone. Inside, the air was damp and cool, the darkness broken only by the dim glow of the fire he lit with shaking hands. The alien girl sat against the wall, her body exhausted, her wound throbbing beneath the cloth. She hated her weakness, hated how much she needed the warmth of that fire, yet her eyes never left the human as he worked. He crouched over the flames, feeding them with scraps of wood. His face was drawn with fatigue, his clothes torn, but his movements carried the same quiet patience as before. He pulled out a ration pack, tore it open, and set half of it near her feet. She stared at it, her pride fighting her hunger. Finally, without a word, she picked it up and ate. Each bite was dry, but it filled her stomach. She expected him to watch her, to gloat over her need, but when she looked up, his gaze was still on the fire. He did not demand thanks. He did not even look at her as if she owed him something. That unsettled her more than anything. The silence stretched until she broke it. "Do you treat all enemies this way?" His eyes flicked to her for a moment before returning to the fire. "Only the ones who bleed." Her claws tapped against the stone floor. She wanted to laugh, but the sound caught in her throat. Something heavy pressed inside her chest, and she could not name it. The firelight cast shadows across his face. She studied him, noticing the line of blood dried along his jaw where her claw had once cut him. She had nearly killed him, yet he never struck her back. Instead, he carried her, fed her, bled for her. The thought made her heart pound in an unfamiliar rhythm. The cave grew colder. Without warning, he took his blanket and held it out to her. She blinked, confused. "You will freeze." "I'll manage," he said. Her hand twitched. She wanted to refuse, to remind him she needed nothing from a human. Yet the cold bit too deep and her pride faltered. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders, its warmth sinking into her bones. Time passed and her eyelids grew heavy. She fought against sleep, but her body betrayed her. Her head tilted, and before she realized it, she had leaned against him. Her cheek brushed his arm. She snapped awake, pulling back with a hiss. But he did not move. He did not mock her or push her away. He simply adjusted his position so she could rest more comfortably if she chose. Her breath quickened. She stared at him, searching his face for some hidden trick, some sign of control. But all she saw was quiet determination. Her claws slowly retracted, her hands curling into fists, not from anger, but from confusion. She had been fierce all her life, sharp as steel, feared even by her own people. Yet here beside him, wrapped in his warmth, she felt something she had never felt before. Gentle. The fire cracked softly, and as her eyes closed again, she realized with dread and wonder that she was no longer guarding herself from him. She was letting go. The morning light slipped through cracks in the stone, brushing across the walls of the cave. The alien girl opened her eyes slowly, her body heavy but warmer than it had been in days. The human was still awake, sitting near the fire, sharpening a piece of metal into a blade. His expression was calm, though his eyes were sharp, always watching the shadows outside. She shifted, the blanket sliding from her shoulders. The movement made her wound ache, and she hissed under her breath. At once he turned, setting down the blade. His hand reached for her side, but she slapped it away with a weak claw. I can endure, she said harshly, though her voice trembled. He did not argue. He only gave her a steady look, then turned back to his work. The quiet anger inside her boiled. She wanted him to push, to show weakness, to prove that he was no different from the cruel image her people had painted of humans. But he never did. Before she could speak again, the sound of movement echoed outside. Heavy footsteps, voices speaking in a language she knew too well. Her people. Her chest tightened. If they found her here, everything would end. They would kill him instantly, then drag her back, wounded and disgraced. The thought sent a strange panic through her body. The human noticed her trembling. He leaned closer, whispering, "If they find us, I'll distract them. You'll have a chance to escape." Her head snapped toward him, fury flashing in her eyes. "You would throw your life away?" He held her gaze. "Better me than you." Her claws scraped against the stone floor. No one had ever spoken like that to her. Her own clan saw her as a tool, a weapon, nothing more. And here was a human, offering his life as if her survival mattered more than his own. The fire in her heart shifted into something heavier, something she did not know how to carry. The footsteps drew nearer. Shadows stretched across the entrance. She could see the outline of armored figures outside, searching. Her breath came fast, her instincts screaming to call out to them. It would be easy. She only needed to shout, and they would save her. She would be home. But her eyes turned to the human. He had already picked up his blade, crouching low, ready to fight even though the enemy outnumbered him. His lips were tight, but his eyes showed no fear. He would fight to the last breath, not for himself, but for her. Her claws shook as she raised a hand toward the entrance. The words sat on her tongue. Loyalty to her people demanded it, but her heart betrayed her. Instead of calling out, she reached forward and caught the human's wrist. He looked at her, surprised. "No," she whispered fiercely. "We hide together. We fight together. Or we die together." For a moment, the air between them burned hotter than the fire. He gave a small nod, and they pressed into the shadows side by side as the soldiers' voices passed by. When the danger faded, she realized her claws were still wrapped around his wrist. Holding on as if letting go meant losing more than she could bear. The forest beyond the ruins was alive with the sound of wind moving through broken trees. Smoke still clung to the horizon, but here the air was clearer, sharper. The human led the way along a narrow path, his steps cautious, his weapon slung across his back. Behind him, the alien girl walked slowly, her wound healing under his care, her pride heavier than the pack on his shoulders. They stopped at a stream. He knelt, filling the flask with fresh water. When he turned to hand it to her, she hesitated only a moment before taking it. Their fingers brushed, and for the first time she did not pull away. She drank, the cold water calming her throat, and when she gave it back, her eyes lingered on his longer than she intended. "You should leave me here," she said softly. "If my clan finds us, they will not forgive me, or you." He shook his head, his expression calm. "Then I'll keep walking." Her chest tightened. "Why? What are you gaining by carrying me, by healing me, by—" She cut herself off, her voice trembling. "You risk everything for me." He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because you're more than what they say you are." The words struck deep, breaking through the last wall she had kept around her heart. She lowered her gaze, her claws curling against the earth. Fierce, unyielding, merciless. That was what she had been taught to be. But beside him, those edges softened. Shouts carried on the wind. Her clan. They were close. She felt her body tense, instincts screaming to rejoin them, to return to the safety of her own kind. Yet when she looked at the human, standing ready to defend her with only his tired strength, her decision was already made. She stepped forward, standing between him and the sound of the approaching warriors. Her claws extended, but not toward him. Her voice was sharp when she spoke, loud enough to carry through the trees. "If you want him, you go through me." The words shocked even herself. For the first time in her life, she chose a human over her own people. The voices faltered, then faded back into the distance. Perhaps they were not ready for a wounded warrior's fury, or perhaps they simply did not believe what they had heard. Either way, the forest grew quiet once more. She turned to him slowly. His eyes were wide, surprise written across his face. But before he could speak, she stepped closer, close enough for the warmth of his breath to brush her skin. "You healed me," she whispered, "and you changed me." Her claws retracted, her hands curling gently at her sides. The fierce predator was gone, replaced by something fragile, something new. When he reached out, she did not resist. For the first time, she leaned into his touch, her eyes closing, her body trembling not with rage, but with something she had never known. In the shadow of the ruined world, the fierce alien girl had become a gentle kitten, and the human who had once been her enemy was now the only one she trusted to carry her into whatever future waited beyond the smoke.